Penguin here. Thanks for showing up for this week's video. It's gonna be a really interesting one, promise. Current community sentiment on Tears of the Kingdom has been comparatively negative. Not sure if you've really noticed.
Oh, there's a big surprise! That's an incredible... I think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise!
I mean, to me, this isn't really all that surprising. Some may call it the Zelda cycle, others the Sonic cycle, and others still the Fire Emblem cycle. But regardless of what you call it, there seems to be a trend in modern media franchises nowadays, where a new iteration will release, be praised for a certain time, and then fall out with the community after comparisons to other titles in the series arise, and the new version is hated until the next iteration is released. Once the new game is released, criticism and hate die down for the newest iteration, as it gets compared to the one in question, and opinions raise for the old and fall for the new, and the cycle repeats. Seeing that the internet dislikes Tears of the Kingdom does not surprise me in the slightest. Though I will say, I don't necessarily agree with the internet on their take. Tears of the Kingdom is a marvelous game. It feels to me like they took it in the right direction, but a lot of fans seem to disagree on that. They have a lot of valid criticism for the game, and as someone who enjoys online debates and inquiries, I kinda wanted to understand people's distaste. So I watched a 3-hour skitty bitty video on the subject. Almost every criticism made was a valid concern about Tears of the Kingdom, but I was shocked at the conclusion Skitty came to. I 100% agreed with much of the criticism about this game's flaws, but I didn't hate the game the way Skitty did. So naturally, I wanted to know why, and today I think I have the answer to that. So today's video will be all about why so many people hate Tears of the Kingdom, and spoiler alert, it's probably not what you'd think, nor what they would tell you. Notably though, this isn't a video discussing my criticisms of Tears of the Kingdom. Instead, it will discuss others' criticisms of Tears of the Kingdom, why I agree with those criticisms, and why they don't make me personally hate the game. If you're keenly observing, you'll probably even notice that all of this game's flaws actually stem from one singular source. Another disclaimer here really quick though, I will be using Skitty's video as my source for complaints against the game. It's a 3-hour video, so I figure it's probably a good place to get everything I need for this, hopefully, 30-minute video. That said, this is not going to be comprehensive of everything Skitty says, or that the entire community feels or agrees on. I'm trying to be nice to my editor here, so there will likely be stuff that I miss. So if your criticisms aren't addressed, feel free to bring them up in the comments. I may not agree with them, but that doesn't mean that they don't deserve to be seen or heard. And I don't have a problem with people kindly and cordially discussing their gripes. That said, please try to keep it kind and family friendly. My parents and siblings watch these videos, and I like keeping it clean for everyone, so some cooperation on that front would be greatly appreciated. Alright, let's start with the first problem that Skitty brings up, the abilities. Though most people seem to like exploring the possibilities of the 4 central abilities of this game, there are still some valid criticisms regarding some of them. Fuse is a mile wide and an inch deep in its applications, Recall is too easy to break puzzles with, and even the puzzles designed for it are too simple. Ultrahand is finicky, and Ascend is... well, actually, Ascend is basically perfect. This. More of this, please. I actually agree with all of this. Let's start with Fuse. Fuse allows you to stick any item onto any of your weapons, but the actual application of that is just a 1 damage bonus and maybe some durability in 90% of cases, and there are never any non-tutorial puzzles related to the mechanic. It exists to allow you some level of creativity with your inventory, but in most cases you'll just use a silver Lionel horn or a Molduga jaw, so what's even the point? So yeah, I agree, Fuse is a little bit too limited despite its broad scope. But that's not really a problem for me though. Why? Because this system is an improvement. Breath of the Wild didn't give you a system for self-expression like Fuse. You couldn't make a bee wand or a butter shield. You got what the game gave you. You wanted an elemental weapon for a fight or a shrine puzzle? Then I hope you had one on hand, buddy. 'Cause if not, you're out of luck. Did your weapon just break? Well, let's hope the next weapon drop is a good replacement. Tears of the Kingdom gives you far more control over your inventory in this regard. Do you need a rod? Make one. You still need to gather the required materials, of course, it's not free, but your inventory can now be used to get you the tools for the job, with less reliance on limited resource space and RNG. In addition, Fuse solves another one of Breath of the Wild's problems. The inventory of Tears of the Kingdom may not all be useful, but all of it is more useful than the Breath of the Wild counterpart. What does a Hinox toenail even do in Breath of the Wild? Maybe you need it for some fetch quest or an armor upgrade, but 99% of the inventory has only one of those two uses. The entire inventory page is just a big nothing burger except for the food, which is just a regular burger instead of a nothing burger. There's no reason to have 90% of it. Fuse lets at least some of these items have genuine use cases, and even beyond that, fighting high difficulty enemies is now guaranteed to give you high value rewards. Now, Fuse does still have a major UI problem, and it's not properly utilized in puzzles. That's fair criticism. But for me, it's an improvement on pre-existing systems, so it wasn't that upsetting to me. In short, Fuse is a flawed improvement. But you will find that this sentiment is actually applicable to all of the other abilities as well. Does Recall break the game's puzzles? In many situations, yeah, it does. Was it possible to break puzzles in Breath of the Wild? Absolutely it was. In this case, however, I am breaking a system in a way that feels earned. Sure, Recall can be used to get me up and over a problem, but for me to be making use of Recall in a way that easily subverts these puzzles, I have to be engaging with the system in ways that feel unintentional, and that makes me as a player feel clever. You might think that it's a bad thing that I'm able to get around these puzzles so easily, and that this one ability can be used to unlock so many doors that it wasn't planned for, but again, this problem stems from Breath of the Wild. This is something that everyone did in Breath of the Wild and that the developers wanted you to be able to do. So is it a problem? Well, yes and no. If you believe it to be a problem, then it is for you. But it isn't a Tears of the Kingdom original problem even if you believe it to be a problem. It exists as a result of Breath of the Wild's open-ended philosophy. How about Ultrahand? Well, for the first time in this video, we actually do have a Tears of the Kingdom original issue. The mechanics of putting together a build in this game are intuitive, but clunky. Making a vehicle that goes straight or uphill can be ridiculously challenging at times. But again, this is a net improvement. Ultrahand exists to give the player a system to interact with the resources that the area has to provide them. No matter what a Breath of the Wild fan says, that's not really something Breath of the Wild that you do more than any other game. I see a beehive near an enemy camp, so I shoot it. Cool. I see a rock on a cliff, so I push it. Awesome. Do people really not realize this is essentially the exact same thing as seeing a block out of place and pushing it back in place? Or seeing an unlit torch and lighting it? You're not being creative, you're doing what the developers intended you to do. Ultrahand is not like that at all. You think Nintendo foresaw the spanking machines, crucifying Koroks, or Megalovania laser stylophones? No, they gave you systems that allow for that kind of thing, but what you do with them both is and is intended to be completely open-ended. Sure, Breath of the Wild lets you beat a Lionel with Magnesis, but the developers didn't put a metal boulder there for you to walk it 2 miles to the nearest Lionel for your challenge run. The game let you be creative, but despite what the developers say, it rarely encouraged that creativity. Tears of the Kingdom with Ultrahand absolutely does. So I think you can probably see where this is going at this point. The reason people dislike Tears of the Kingdom is because of problems they have with the systems of Breath of the Wild. They may not know it, they may not recognize it, they may even deny it. But the vast majority of criticisms brought up by most fans regarding Tears of the Kingdom are not only present in Breath of the Wild, they are usually worse in Breath of the Wild. I do not hate Tears of the Kingdom, specifically because I absolutely despised Breath of the Wild.
I hate you!
And to me, Tears of the Kingdom was a step in the right direction. Most people don't seem to realize this, and yet, if you ask someone for why they hate Tears of the Kingdom, they will always list a reason that lines up with my feelings on why Breath of the Wild failed to meet my expectations. And a strong vocal minority agrees with me on that. Don't believe me? Let's continue. Among other complaints, Skitty brings up how Link needs Raru's hand to activate everything, and that makes the world feel too gamey. The fact that Breath of the Wild seems to just not matter in Tears of the Kingdom. How the game feels unfinished based on locations like the sky and the depths not having enough to do. The dungeons being lackluster, the shrines being bad, the side quests and rewards being bad. Weapon durability, enemy variety, and other combat concerns. And of course, the story. We could be here for a while if we wanted to. Heck, I could make an entire series discussing all of the concerns on this list. But I'll summarize all of this by saying that the concerns mentioned on this list are all valid criticisms of Tears of the Kingdom, but are all still either the exact same or vast improvements on their implementation in Breath of the Wild. And yes, that includes the story. I don't know if you guys noticed this or not, Breath of the Wild outside of the tutorial didn't have a plot. There was no overarching plot at all. There was world building, character development, and setting out the wazoo, but there wasn't a narrative being told. The memories of Breath of the Wild didn't help you understand the conflict you were going through at all. They were just character vignettes. I mean, they may have made you feel nice, and maybe you got attached to the characters, but we didn't get to see those characters' stories at all. We got to see a few of the quiet moments around their story. We get to learn about these characters' interpersonal relationships and maybe their motivations, but we're only ever told about their real stories and we are never shown them. People joke about the Sacred Stones and Demon King stuff of Tears of the Kingdom, but may I bring up the fact that the champions were pulling the exact same garbage. Oh, Link, that's the thing that got me. Yeah, Urbosa, we know, we've already fought this boss 3 other times. I'm not saying that it wasn't annoying in Tears of the Kingdom, it was. But people are acting like this stuff is a new issue, and it's not. And sure, Tears of the Kingdom can spoil itself in some of the memories, but Breath of the Wild doesn't let you get to the memories before it spoils the ending for the Calamity. The tutorial has already done that. Let's not even mention how Zelda's character development in Breath of the Wild was literally just realizing that she had a crush on Link. And that somehow fulfills her spiritual requirement to become the goddess incarnate? Wow, guys, this is some Legend of Korra level garbage, my friends. What are we talking about here? What are... Now, to be fair, Skitty and the community both have valid criticisms that do not derive from and are not improvements on Breath of the Wild, but it's the nitpicky small stuff. The UI is genuinely terrible, I'll give you that. And the champion abilities are activated via the worst method ever conceived. There's no shrine on Shrine Island or mining constructs at the Sky Mine. Stuff like that is Tears of the Kingdom unique, and yes, it can be incredibly annoying at times. But it is all still small beans type of issues. The big ones, the ones worth making 3-hour videos for, are all Breath of the Wild issues before Tears of the Kingdom issues, and Tears of the Kingdom improves on almost all of them. I could bring up how Raru's immersion-breaking hand, it breaks immersion to no greater a degree than the Sheikah Slate did. How none of the games pre-Wild Era mattered to Breath of the Wild's continuity at all. How the divine beasts and shrines of Breath of the Wild were bland and uninteresting to a degree that makes Tears of the Kingdom's dungeons look like they deserve medals. And how Breath of the Wild's overworld didn't have anything to do but climb and walk. And any of the other dozens of things Breath of the Wild messed up worse than Tears of the Kingdom did. And yet, fan consensus states that Tears of the Kingdom is hot garbage and Breath of the Wild remains on the top. Why? How could this have possibly been the case? Like, I'm genuinely tweaking about this, guys. Breath of the Wild was the game that mucked it all up, but Tears of the Kingdom is the one that pays the price? Has everyone lost their collective minds? Well, if I'm being honest, no, probably not. If nothing else, Breath of the Wild was a groundbreaking game. And for as much as Tears of the Kingdom was a step in the right direction for people like me, adding more creativity, implementing fun systems for interacting with the world around you, and taking small steps back towards the series staples, the one thing it really wasn't was groundbreaking. It retread old ground. It improved on and expounded on the concepts introduced in Breath of the Wild, but it was the same concept. Tears of the Kingdom lacks something that Breath of the Wild had, something that let others look past its copious flaws. What others loved about Breath of the Wild is one of the things that I most despise about it: the novelty. To others, Breath of the Wild was a bold new step in an exciting new era for Zelda and Nintendo as a whole. It symbolized an end to stagnation and an attempt at modernizing. It was bigger, fresher, and more beautiful than Zelda had ever been. But to me, that novelty stung. It was a statement that my favorite series was dead. That everything I loved about older Zelda titles was being thrown out by the developers. That I would never again experience what it felt like to enter a dungeon or hear a heroic overworld theme. It was a statement that I would never again care about the gameplay because there wasn't an emotional or interesting narrative pushing me forward. That novelty told me that I was to be left behind by what I loved, and I hated the game for it. I still do. Tears of the Kingdom, on the other hand, was, to me, what Breath of the Wild should have been. The dungeons were still small, with the exact same puzzle structure as Breath of the Wild, but they looked right, and they felt separate from the overworld, like a little pocket of mystery waiting to be picked through. They didn't scream at you as you approached, they hid from you, waiting for the right moment for you to find them. They were secrets to be discovered. The story had twists and turns again. Sure, it could be viewed out of order, but it mattered again. There was foreshadowing and emotional beats that were built up to, climactic battles that were better understood after witnessing certain revelations. It wasn't perfect. The structure in which memories are delivered to you in Tears of the Kingdom doesn't fit the linear narrative that the game presents in any way, shape, or form, but that doesn't really mean a lot to me, because Tears of the Kingdom told a story that informed my understanding of the world around me. It was more than just two characters and their personal relationship. It was about intrigue and deceit, countermeasures and planning, and yes, it was too short. Yes, it didn't get enough time with the characters. But, you know, I don't really mind that. Breath of the Wild almost killed my love of Zelda because it didn't have a narrative that mattered at all. Breath of the Wild was 1,000 miles wide and an inch deep, and nobody saw that in it. Tears of the Kingdom was another inch deep. It wasn't enough, but it was an improvement. I didn't like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom due to the novelty. I liked Tears of the Kingdom because, to me, it said that there was hope on the horizon. Others have started to see through Tears of the Kingdom what I saw in Breath of the Wild. The novelty isn't there in Tears of the Kingdom the way it was in Breath of the Wild. They are seeing that open-ended gameplay can lead to a less curated experience, that narratives are more meaningful when they are viewed linearly, that dungeons mean a lot for the Zelda experience, and that bigger isn't always better. I'm not upset that people dislike Tears of the Kingdom. In a weird way, I kind of feel heard. Like, I don't agree that Tears of the Kingdom is worse than Breath of the Wild, but I do agree with people's reasons for disliking Tears of the Kingdom. It is a flawed system. Without the novelty, the rough spots stick out more to people. I do think that an open-ended approach can really work because, to me, Echoes of Wisdom was the crowning jewel of open-ended Zelda. It was a 2D Zelda game, so it hasn't received the recognition on the same level that Wild era games have, and yet it was the only Zelda of the Switch era that made me feel at home again. And to me, though it wasn't perfect, Tears of the Kingdom was a stepping stone towards that. It was an open-ended game to the extreme, but it had a story that got you invested, characters that fought alongside you, dungeons that felt like stepping into a place lost to time, and in places, a soundtrack that made you feel adventurous again. It felt like I was playing Zelda for the first time in a long, long time, and yet the world was as open as it could be. That was all about Echoes of Wisdom, by the way, not really Tears of the Kingdom, but it does still more or less apply there too. Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild have more refining to do, and it's good that people are noticing that. I did not make this video to simp for Tears of the Kingdom, nor to trash on Breath of the Wild. I find it a little sad that so many people criticize Tears of the Kingdom for problems that didn't originate in it, but people are right that they are still problems with the game. I still find it sad that so many people will praise Breath of the Wild to their dying breath. But you know what? It's been almost a decade now, so I think it might be time for me to just move on from that. In the end, the way people feel about these games isn't something logical or based on evidence. It's about the feelings that they had when playing the games. And that's something that none of us can control. I can try to tell you that the reason that people think Tears of the Kingdom is terrible is because it was built on the shoddy foundation that is Breath of the Wild. But Breath of the Wild is a foundation loved by millions of people from all walks of life, so who's to say that I know anything? In the end, the reason people dislike Tears of the Kingdom is probably because it didn't meet their expectations. Breath of the Wild set the bar high for many, and it set the bar very low for me. The game, unsurprisingly, jumped over my low bar and perhaps expectedly didn't clear the bar for many others. And it's okay that we disagree on that. We may not agree on everything, but at the very least, I think I can speak for everyone when I say that whether you prefer the one game or the other, or whether you love or hate the era as a whole, I think we're all happy that Nintendo is still making Zelda games. They may not get them right every time, but they give us something to look forward to, another chance to get it right next time. And I can't wait to see what they have planned for us when that next time comes. Rip F-Zero fans. Alright, that just about wraps up this one for today. I know that today's video will probably be a contentious one in the comments, but I hope that we can all keep it cordial. Quick reminder to hit the hype button if you still have available uses, and as always, a like or subscription are 100% appreciated. Huge thanks to Berber0555 for joining our channel memberships program. If you'd like to support our channel for $2.99 a month, you too can get access to some custom emojis and a membership badge to show off to all the other members of the flock that you're one of the real ones. Regardless of your membership status though, thanks for watching to the end. I look forward to seeing you next week, but until then though, this is Outcast Penguin, signing off.